it say yes? Cool.
Yep.
All right.
Variable income.
Yes. Um, you guys are gonna hear me kind of go back and forth between Fannie and Freddie only because I'm a weirdo and I think about them both as brother and sister or cousins or step siblings or whatever have you. And they're closely related. But this subject is super, super dear to me because a long time ago, and I know that some of you are going to be able to relate to me immediately. How many of you guys remember, and you can put a one in the chat or you can raise your hand. How many of you guys remember about, man, 20 years ago, which was not really a long time, where there were only like two types of paychecks? It was like
Yes.
ADP or something.
Yes.
Yes,
Yep. Yeah.
that was it. And then I don't know what's happened, but the invention of the different quick softwares and the QuickBooks and all this other type of stuff, pay stubs just went a little kooky. And I can tell you, as an underwriter, and I know that my underwriter friends love when I talk to you guys because they're always trying to give me tips on what to say as if I don't know what to say. But one thing that I want to tell you guys is that, listen, we do not have a special superpower to read pay stubs. That's why we put conditions, AKA questions, on files. We really don't know. Now, we might have experience from seeing those pay stubs over and over and over again, but these pay stubs that are coming and that are different and they have different wording and they have different language on it, we don't know. And so we're going to ask. And so, one of the things that I encourage you guys to do, whether you are actively originating loans or actively processing, is to either do it or tell your people, ask questions in the beginning. There is
Yeah.
nothing more frustrated for a borrower to give you pay stubs and then 2 weeks later you come back with 1,000 questions. You've had their pay stubs. So what I encourage my mentees to do is, when you're collecting that documentation from your borrower, immediately start going through it. I am not telling you to underwrite the file. I am not telling you to process the file. I am simply saying, look at the documentation and see if there is any strange language on there that might make you question what's going on. That there used to be a very, 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 like, I don't know, what can we call it? Like a line in the sand or something like that. You were either paid annually, you were paid monthly, or you were paid, we used to say semi-monthly. I
Yeah.
don't know why Fannie says twice monthly now, but semi-monthly, twice monthly, bi-weekly, weekly, or you were paid hourly.
Mhm.
And what I have seen over the past years is, and maybe it came with the whole insurance debacle that happened years ago, but employers are so very careful about not giving someone a full 80 hours of pay period, or not giving someone a full 40 hours of pay period. Or sometimes people just don't want to work the full 40 hours, the full 80 hours, the 160 hours a month. Whatever the case may be, it's not as cut and dry. And so, because it's not as fixed as it used to be, there became a need to address these varying situations, varying hours. Now, I told you I'm going to talk a little bit about Freddie. I didn't tell you I was going to talk about FHA too. These are the terms that you guys probably see kind of like floating around right now. Variable is a term that Fannie uses. Fluctuating is a term, that's this one right here, as if you guys can't spell fluctuating, is the term that Freddie Mac uses. And then varying hours, that's an FHA term. But they all pretty much mean the same thing. The borrower does not work a fixed set of hours. Those hours change. And I want you to notice something. I don't like to put a lot of words inside of my slide deck or PowerPoints. I say this as the next one has a bunch of words on it, so forgive me. But Do you notice that in this particular image, no matter what's going on, it still goes up? And there's a reason for that, because just because your borrower's hours are lower sometimes, or higher sometimes, that's not necessarily a red flag. All that means is that you need more documentation. I actually have on a shirt that says, "But did you document it?" Because it's all about documentation. For a very long time, everybody thought that a letter of explanation was the cure all for everything. I want to assure you it is not. The letter of explanation explains the documentation that you have provided. So now that we've talked about fixed hours, now that we talked about kind of what variable hours are, let's look at some situations where you are going to see the variable income. I'm back to using the term variable income because we are talking about Fannie today. I've got 5 different examples right here, and I apologize for the words. I usually try and take out some of those words so that my screen is not so word heavy. But just plain fluctuating hours. Sometimes they work 30, sometimes they work 20. Um, this one right here says healthcare with changing shifts. I'm going to bring something else up. Um, you've got your I said fire persons online. I have no idea why I said fire persons. I think I was just trying to think of like everybody, like the women and the men. But it turns out it's firefighters. So we had a really, really good laugh about that. But your fire, I'm going to say it again, your fire people, your firefighters, your police officers, your EMT workers, teachers work kooky hours. You know what I mean? Like you can't really see their hours. So you kind of have to get their contract. Not the best example, but I'm just trying to explain to you that these are those pay stubs that you're going to see that just don't have those fixed hours. A retail person who works a variable schedule, you know, a Sears. Is there still Sears out there? What about JC Penney? I don't know. Like, can you tell I don't shop a lot? All my shopping is done online. Um, but someone who just doesn't work fixed set of hours. Warehouses are famous for that too. And then of course, you know, your part-time workers might, but part-time is an okay example because we still need a 2-year history, whereas we don't necessarily need at least a 2-year history for these two. Now, let me tell you what variable income is not. And I love this because when I tell you that I have had this discussion with several different people going back and forth, some of them underwriters, variable income is not bonus, commission, overtime, or tip income. We have completely different guidelines for those. So when you go and you look for these guidelines, make sure that you don't fall into this trap. It is not the absolute same. It's not. Thank goodness it has finally been divided so that everybody understands. It's not the same thing. There are different requirements for those. So we're still talking about people that are salaried. This is their base income. And because it's their base income, that's where you're going to find it in Fannie Mae's guidelines. And I wish I had got that image above there, but it's so much. I just kind of got this part. So when you're looking for anything that has to do with variable income, you'll either search Fannie Mae variable income, and I'm telling you, it's going to take you right to base income. Why? Because this is their base income. This is not their commission. This is not their overtime. This is not that type of income. This is what the bars earn consistently every single month. So Fannie and Freddie, I'm not talking about Freddie today though, but Fannie and Freddie did something that people have been complaining about for years. They finally put the guidelines in writing. They finally gave us some great direction. I am hoping that, what is their name? I am hoping that FHA, USDA pick up on this because normally they usually do. You know what I mean? The agencies kind of like kick it off and then everybody else kind of follows suit afterwards. Fannie was the first one to come out, then Freddie Mac came out. But I love this because they give you 2 methods. Like we don't have a bunch of decisions. Like stop letting people like it's the wild, wild west. You just do whatever you want to do. We need clear direction. So let's talk about the average method. The average method is what you'll normally use like with a written verification of employment. You might even use your pay stubs, or you'll use the pay stubs from the last 2 years just so that you can get that base out. I didn't put this in here because I know that I'm dealing with some experienced mortgage professionals. But for those of you that are listening on YouTube, one of the things that I want to tell you is that when you're calculating your base income, you are allowed to add PTO or paid time off, holiday pay, sick pay, bereavement, I'm trying to think of something else. I think I said holiday, but all of those are part of the borrower's base income. And so when you start to tally all those numbers up so that you can average them out, you can use the last 12 months, which I freaking love. At first, it was not clear because they talked about overtime, bonus time, but it's now completely separated. So, quick example. I don't really know what Ellie does for a living, but right now she's going to be an originator for me. So, Ellie's got this borrower, and this borrower has been at this company for 12 months. We have a straight 12-month history of this borrower. The borrower does work variable hours. They go up, they go down, they go up, they go down. Even though it's only 12 months is enough history for Fannie. The calculation must include a minimum of 12 months. Ellie can use that 12 months and calculate that borrower's income. Let me bring some balance to this. We still need a 2-year history. Remember, that's the application. We're not talking about the requirements of an application. We are talking about calculating income. So she can use the 12 months. Now, we really won't know if that income is decreasing because it's only 12 months. But let's just say, for instance, she does have someone that does have longer than 12 months. This was spelled out too. And this is so very important. So, what usually happens when a borrower has 2 years history of whatever type of income, whether it's commission, bonus, base income, whatever have you, and that sucker decreases, underwriters start hitting brakes. They start panicking. They start loading your conditional approval with conditions. Sometimes they're realistic, sometimes they're not. It just depends on who the underwriter is. So what I challenge everybody to do is, as soon as you get your income documentation, whether you're using one of the really cool AR softwares that are out there now, or if you're using just one of my workflow sheets where you can actually just put in the income and the last 2 years of income and see if that income is decreasing. Why do I want you to do that in the very beginning? So that we can start to ask the questions ahead of time. So I lost my ball and it went under my desk, but I got my 16-year-old to crawl underneath my desk and get it for me. So can you guys see my disco ball? Now, I don't know how many of you will admit to being a partier. I don't have a problem admitting that. I used to do a little partying back in the day. And when we partied, there was something that would be called an after party. What's an after party? After you partied and you've had a good time, someone's like, no, let's not end the night. Let's go such and such place, or let's go to such and such house and let's keep this party going. Everybody loves an after party. I'll make this about me. I loved an after party. But let me tell you what underwriters don't love. They do not love an after story. An after story is you've submitted that file and you gave them all this documentation. And then all of a sudden, as soon as they say, oh, you know what? This borrower's income doesn't really look like it is going to continue upward. So if your borrower was at $5,000 a month in 2024, and then they were at $4,000 a month in 2005. Here we are in 2006, and we're at 3,000. I can't really approve this loan because they're not going to be able to afford this loan next year, because the trend that we see is that it's going down, down, down. And that's the problem. The burden is for you to prove to the underwriter that, listen, I know that this borrower's income has gone down the past 2 years. Let me explain and document why the income has gone down the last 2 years. We're not selling a certain product anymore. I moved to another location and now work for a different company. And I'm not working the overtime that I used to work because I can't, but my base income has stayed the same. Do you see how I just went through a bunch of different scenarios as to why this is going on? And you ask these questions up front because they specifically say otherwise the income is not eligible for qualifying. So we need to confirm it. We need to let the underwriter know we see it. We know you see it. This is why it's happening. Because the only thing that the underwriter wants to know is, I'm going to give you this mortgage in 2026 at $3,000 a month. Is the borrower going to still be at $3,000 a month next year? That's what we're trying to prove. They actually put it in writing. You have got to love when they put stuff in writing, because now all you have to do is confirm the current income level has stabilized after decline. That's the language you use. I know that you saw this, but let me explain to you why it's stabilized. Here's a documentation to show why it's stabilized. I want to say this again, guys. I want to say this again. A letter of explanation is not documentation. It is explaining a document that you are providing. So I know you're looking at this pay stub example and thinking to yourself, what's going on here? This right here, for me, is an example of a pay stub that may not be variable. I want you guys to ask questions. Listen, this pay stub says 75.30 hours. The other pay stub said 76.7 hours. Oh, I can explain. And I've got documentation. My son broke his ankle, which he actually did. Christian broke his ankle recently. And he's been in physical therapy for the past couple of weeks. Well, guess what? For the next 4 weeks, I have to take Christian to physical therapy at 4 o'clock every single evening. That doesn't mean that I work variable hours. That means that I'm not going to take a hit, or I'm not going to take any paid time off, because I would rather use that for something else than for that little 1 hour. I will take the hit. Let me save my sick days for when I'm really sick. Let me save my vacation days for when I really, really want a vacation. So when you see these hours, when you see something that's just like right on the edge, ask the question. Because in my case, if I was working a regular 9 to 5 job, what I would do is I would say, listen, I go to physical therapy with my son twice a week. That's why you're seeing that. That's why it shows those little hours. I need time to get there and then time to get back. Here are the appointments. I've got a letter from the physical therapy because it was during work hours showing. And now you don't have to worry about going back and forth with the underwriter on what variable income, variable hours are. I say that to you because this is a huge argument with borrowers. This probably isn't the best example because you've got floater and holiday pay, but you don't really see any paid time off. All employers don't give paid time off or sick days. So important questions, and important to kind of take a glance at that. Let's talk about the average hours method. This is everybody's absolute least favorite. Why? Because if you're going to do average hours, 9 times out of 10, you got to go get 12 months worth of pay stubs to average those hours out. Is it worth it? Anything is worth it if you're helping your borrower obtain whatever their goal is. You just have to prepare them for it. listen, I know that this is absolutely annoying. Can you get me as many pay stubs as you can? Here's the cool part. If they work for one of those automated companies, which a lot of them do, then you're golden. If they don't, ask them for as many pay stubs as you possibly can get that written verification of employment, have the employer state what the hours are. If they don't have pay stubs, then I'm sure they have a payroll detail, which is where the employer can just print out what they paid them over the past like 12 months or so. But just use all the buzzwords so that the employer can get you what you need so that you can help this borrower obtain the loan that they need. A lot of stuff is not that hard. All we have to do is just document it. The problem is the documentation. And what I love is that Fannie Mae has given you guys the keys to the castle. This is what it is right now. They're laying it out. It used to be very, very vague, but it's not vague anymore. So this is an example of a pay stub that has just 30 hours on it. They're paid bi-weekly, but it only has just 30 hours on it. So you would be asking questions. How many hours did you work last week? Oh, okay. So you do have variable hours. Just an example. I just want you guys to pay attention. Now, I've already proven that I'm a guideline nerd. This right here, when a documented non-recurring event outside the borrower's control temporarily prevents them from earning income, the lender may exclude that period from the income calculation. Old school underwriters have been doing this for years, and we will fight anybody who says that we're wrong for it. We've done it before. We've done it. We've talked to post closing about it. Like I fought this before. If they were not working, then how can I include that in the time that they earned? They have finally put it in writing. So what does that mean? Was someone off for a month because they had to travel somewhere? Did they take a month vacation? Did they do this? Unpaid vacation, of course. But these are things that used to kind of like hit us before. This borrower was off work for however many months, they didn't get paid. And we still had to hit them for the whole 12 months, but they didn't work for 12 months. So keep this in mind. When you're doing those year-to-date calculations and the borrower's income, year-to-date income doesn't support whatever that monthly income is, it looks like they made less money. Ask the questions. Were you out of work for a certain amount of time? What happened? How can we document it? This gets a little personal. So when it comes to them having time off that was a certain amount of time, we don't want to, there's certain questions we really can't ask borrowers. This is where that written verification of employment comes in, where that box at the bottom says employee was out between this time and that time. I would utilize the employer in this if the borrower does not actually have documentation that they can provide you with. Now, I'm always learning things whenever I start digging through the guidelines and I'm presenting to someone. But for just a regular employee related borrower, like this working the biweekly, this working up just the regular hours, I did not know that if they've got a pay raise coming within the next 60 days that you can use that income. That is new. That is dated March 4th, 2026. Just something for you. But it's so new and it's so serious. Fannie Mae made sure that they told you that it does not apply. What do you call it? Hold on one second. That it does not apply for variable income. You notice it says that it must be in place prior to closing. So if you've got somebody else that's about to get a raise in a month, you can use that income if it's not variable income. If it's just a regular salary borrower, you're good. Thought that'd be a kind of cool fact. All right, I did pretty good. It's 129. I'm gonna go ahead and break this, excuse me, stop sharing my screen and see if you guys have any questions in the chat. All right. I'm sorry, I have to sign off. Okay, Michelle. I know who Michelle is. No worries. People make up all kinds of pay. They do. And pilots absolutely do have kooky income too. No problem, Chris. Always enjoy coming on and talking to you guys. I really do hope that I brought some value to you, that I gave you guys some information that you may not have had or may not have realized. Let me know. And if you guys don't have any questions, I won't hold you hostage any longer than I already